In our last episode, we talked about how Western culture has swept into Asian games. Today, it's Asia's turn to strike back, and its influence on Western game runs much deeper than you might think. It's not just samurai, the Great Wall, or stories of the Three Kingdoms. There's also a lot more subtle influence. One that doesn't show up directly in the graphics or the script, yet quietly changes the way you experience the game. Can you guess what that was? Let's go on the journey to uncover the traces of this mysterious Eastern magic. Let's start with the most obvious layer. Unlike many Asian game studios that borrow Western culture elements, Western developers often place Eastern nations directly into their game worlds. This is especially common in strategy games. The British-made Total War series began with Shogun: The Total War, set in Japan's Sengoku period. Later, they released Three Kingdoms, based on the Chinese history, a huge success in both sales and reviews. China and Japan had also frequent civilizations in series like Civilization and Age of Empire. But perhaps the most famous and successful recent example is Ghost of Tsushima. It's hard to imagine an American studio creating an RPG so deeply faithful to Japanese culture. The game feels like a love letter to Japan itself. You can see the visual homage to Akira Kurosawa's classic samurai films. The soundtrack blends shamisen and shakuhachi melodies with natural soundscapes, building an immersive Eastern atmosphere. Combat design faithfully creates the feel of kendo. The heart of the story is the main character's struggle between the honor of the samurai and the will to survive, a distinctly Japanese narrative theme.
We look them in the eye with courage and respect. This is what makes us samurai.
Although it's made by the Western studio Sucker Punch, its culture, respect, and attention to detail make it more than just a game. It's a culture journey through time.
I am samurai, but I will sacrifice everything for my home.
The success of Ghost of Tsushima has also sparked more Western interest in Eastern storytelling. Ubisoft's most recent Assassin's Creed Shadows is clearly aiming for similar success. But from what we've seen, its culture research doesn't run as deep. Many elements feel surface level, and Japanese players have let out some creative complaints. And the choice of Yasuke as male protagonist has also been controversial since before release. So, for now, if you're looking for another authentic Japanese culture RPG, you might have to wait for Ghost of Yotei. Asia's impact on gaming goes far beyond visuals and themes. As one of the great birthplaces of video games, Japan has made massive contributions to gameplay itself. Many genres we know and we love today were first created by Japanese studios. One even carries Japan's name, JRPG, or Japanese role-playing game. RPGs originally evolved from tabletop role-playing games, while Western studios adapt those rules directly into computer RPGs or CRPGs. Japanese developers fuse the role-playing concept with their own culture and aesthetics, creating what we now call the JRPG. Compared to Western RPGs, which favor personalized characters and branching stories, JRPG usually have fixed casts and more linear narratives. As the saying goes, Western RPGs let you play yourself and write your own story, while JRPGs let you play as someone else and live their stories. Because of these differences, JRPG often lean into stylized, fantastical worlds rather than strict realism. And while Western RPGs often focus on moral dilemmas and personal choices, JRPGs place more emphasis on emotional bonds between characters. Today, JRPG are no longer limited to Japan. They've become a global genre, with more and more Western studios creating them. One of the best examples is Sea of Stars, the winner of the Best Indie Game at the Game Award 2023. It's a pure, old-school JRPG with pixel art, turn-based combat, and classic pacing made by a Canadian team. They even add QTE mechanics to make the battle more intense. Another example is Chained Echoes, developed by a single creator in Germany. It's just as faithful to classic JRPG design with even deeper combat and progression systems. But being a solo project, it couldn't match Sea of Stars in art and music quality. This year's biggest surprise is Clair Obscur Expedition 33. The French seems to have a special love for JRPGs. They previously gave us Edge of Eternity, and now Expedition 33 has become one of the top contenders for Game of the Year at the Game Awards. It's clearly inspired by the Final Fantasy, a save-the-world story, a party bound by deep ties, dungeon exploration, turn-based combat, and character progression. But visually and musically, it mixed JRPG fantasy with French realism and weight. The characters avoid the overly plastic look sometimes seen in JRPGs, yet still look striking without the forced ugliness some criticizing modern Western games. Its soundtrack trades pop melodies for operatic, epic scores, and its narrative swaps shonen heroics for Western-style moral dilemmas. Playing it, you get the slow burn charm of JRPG and the artistic richness of French design, a perfect blend. And then there's a JRPG offshoot that went its own way, Soulslike. They've redefined both RPGs and action games. Even now, it's hard to give a clear definition of Soulslike, but that hasn't stopped developers from making more of them. One standout is Hollow Knight. Its brutal boss fight, dark art style, fragmented storytelling, and punishing deaths mechanics are quite tribute from an Australian team to the Souls formula. Some might argue Hollow Knight is more Metroidvania than Soulslike, and that's true. In fact, Metroidvania itself was also from two Japanese classics, Metroid and Castlevania. Once niche, this genre has exploded thanks to Western developers. Beyond Hollow Knight, we have Dead Cells, Ori series, Salt and Sanctuary, and more. Games like Hollow Knight shows how hard it is to fit great games into a single category. They often blend elements from many genres. Another example is Kena Bridge of the Spirits. Developed by two American brothers with art by a Vietnamese studio, it mixes Disney-like color and Southeast Asian flavor. Mechanically, it's part Souls-like, part Zelda. The Souls part shows in the challenging combat and resource management. The Zelda side comes through its puzzles and explorations, like Korok-style collectibles, shrine-like challenges, and environmental interactions. Boss fights combine the action intensity of Soulslikes with Zelda's hit the weak point strategy. Speaking of Zelda, beyond 3D entries like Breath of the Wild, the 2D Zelda lineage is also legendary. The modern champion of 2D Zelda-like is Tunic. Yeah, it has a touch of Souls-like difficulty, but its true brilliance is in reimagining classic 2D Zelda design for today. A green-clad sword and shield hero, intricate dungeons, layered puzzles, and the tight interplay between combat and tools. And then we have a genre that feels like the opposite of Soulslike, the cozy games. Many think Stardew Valley and Animal Crossing made it popular, but the original inspiration was Marvel's Harvest Moon, also known as Stories of Seasons. Although this series has lost some of its former shine, Stardew Valley's creator was so in love with Harvest Moon that he made his own tribute. Today, cozy games are everywhere, arguably half of the market, and it all started from here. Japan was one of the first homes of video games, and its impact is everywhere. From samurai and cherry blossoms to neon cities and wild fantasies, Japanese games turn culture into pixels to the whole world plays. They've made millions fall for Japan, and that love keeps spreading. Games are one of the clearest bridge between cultures, and as the ninth art, they will keep carrying Asia's stories and spirit across the globe. If you enjoy these culture journeys through games, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with your friends. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below about your experience of Asian culture in Western games. See you next time!